Hey, I'm Thomas. If you've been to certain corners of the internet, you've definitely stumbled at this take. The medieval peasant worked less hours than today's normal, everyday Joe. The church was trying to keep the populace happy and cooperative by introducing numerous holidays where they would be off work, and due to the cyclical seasonal working schedule, there were times where essentially little to no work was required. This, in comparison to times such as we currently live in, is a cruel and evil reminder of the endless rat race we've created ourselves and the endless horizon of grueling work with no retirement in sight, and I just want to curl up in a ball and explode. Yeah, that meme. Now, is it true? Yes, but no. You do some 5-minute internet research and you can find out that this entire issue is way too complex to make any kind of final result from this. So let's separate this question from any kind of nuance. Let's give it a fair go. If you were to combine the annual working hours that were aimed at the respective employment tasks, that is, mostly agriculture for an average medieval person, and compare it with our average annual working hours, yes, the medieval peasant probably worked less hours than we do today, due to the very simple fact that modern workers have precisely structured work week. Obviously, depending on the type of work you are finding yourself in and the type of shifts you take. You probably work something resembling a standardized 9 to 5 for a working day, Saturdays and Sundays usually being days off where no employment work is being done. Medieval peasants, having no such thing due to the very nature of days and seasons, worked from sunup to sundown with some breaks in between and the length of days depending on the seasons themselves, ranging from some 16 hours in the summer to 6 in the winter. They obviously probably didn't work 16 hours from start to end. Also, by the way, the estimate of their working hours is based on an already made estimate of a guy living during said times, so not really any scientifically scrutinized effort, really. I'm getting ahead of myself. Click towards the end of the video for more on this, or just watch until then. Interestingly enough, if we add up their holidays when no work was done to our holidays, and depending on your country's allocated paid days off, it just about evens out, so that's out of the question. Also, no, some work just had to be done even on Sundays, same situation as we have today. So there you have it. A medieval worker probably spent less time doing the employment task he was assigned that you do today, allegedly. Keywords being employment tasks. Now, are we prepared for the nuance? I think we're prepared for the nuance. Where is this medieval peasant located? When? Who is this person? Are they a man or a woman? What size is the land they work on? What type of crops do they have? Do they have animals? If so, how many animals do they have? How old are the peasants? Do they have a big family? For goodness sake, people, those guys didn't even have a washing machine, microwave ovens, or even any idea of a standardized public transport. I'm asking this due to the simple fact that we not only probably don't even have a sufficient enough estimate for this to be a real topic to debate. I mean, I am sure those estimates weren't entirely pulled out of someone's behind, but we can't even get those estimates due to a simple fact of the keyword I mentioned earlier. Employment tasks. What is that? It's the keyboard clickety-clacks for the software developers and office clerks. It's the endless monitoring of vital signs for the nurses and the doctors. The grading of student assignments at 2 a.m. that are seemingly infinite both in quantity and the amount of errors contained within. Employment tasks. After those are over, our everyday heroes return from their respective workplaces back home, where they do the rest of what we humans do, like cooking, feeding ourselves and our loved ones, cleaning, washing the dishes, doing the laundry. So non-employment tasks. This also obviously includes the more enjoyable things like learning to play an instrument, exercising, building a homemade nuclear reactor, or making babies. Usual, normal human stuff. So if we were to put this onto a timeline, there's a certain amount of time that we must sleep, let's say 8 hours. I know that's unrealistic for me too, shut up, I'm making a point here. We are off to work and we're probably there for about 8 hours. We come back home and perform our non-employment tasks with the help of technology. Washing machines, refrigerators, electric ovens, vacuum cleaners, the options are numerous. Some time is spent on that, and now we have some little time left over for the more enjoyable things, which often feels like not enough time. Now, a medieval peasant would also probably wake up after 8 hours of sleep. Let's say he works a crisp 10 hours due to the amount of sunlight, and he goes off to the tavern, right? No, there's like a billion things one must do year-round no matter the season. An average modern person does not need to tend to his cattle every day. Buildings need regular maintenance. Fences need to be built up. Fire in the oven needs to be made for everyday cooking. And not freezing to death. Not to mention their clothes had to not only be hand washed, but also in some cases actually be made by hand. and then maintain for as long as possible. None of this is being helped by the technology we know of and possess. To be fair, none of these count as deployment tasks, therefore we can still say that the medieval peasant could in theory work less annual hours than us, but you surely see by now the point that's being brought up in here. I also feel the need to give this some attention. There was also a point brought up somewhere about the lords and the landowners in general demanding or sometimes outright forcing the peasants to do some hard work for them, like creating or maintaining of infrastructure like roads and bridges, or something way more physically demanding like deforesting, which yes, did happen and it could be bad. No one would want to be forced to do that. But it's also playing into this semi-true medievalistic trope that landowners were in every case a tyrannical figure who wished nothing but misery for their people and riches from their work for themselves. No, not always, no. Lords were also people who could see the practical issues and problems their people could be going through and potentially find a way to relieve them of some of their burdens. You know, you can just buy an ox in the nearest town so that your peasants can work with it on your land, and there you go. Yes, the lord was still a lord and the peasant was still a peasant. There was never any change in that dynamic. But sick, overworked and unhappy peasants are usually also dead peasants, and you can't do much with those, so you don't want that. In conclusion, the medieval peasants maybe worked less annual hours than we do in today's age, but that absolutely did not make their leisure time any longer, their physical health any better, nor their general happiness more apparent. I'm not sure about the last one, sounds like another video. Why bring this up? Why make a video about it? Well, the meme itself is funny. It is not factually 100% correct or honest, but it is in good faith. It is not necessary to lie to you about history in order to start a conversation on how our time is being spent. It is being dishonest, probably not intentionally, in the scientific historical sense, but yeah, this conversation is important to have. Do we have enough time for our loved ones, for our hobbies, our true meanings in life, or ourselves? Like, yes, let's have a conversation about that. Let's send some attention that way. Let's just not be intellectually dishonest with historical facts. Like, that's just not making anything better. So when I first saw this, it actually got me thinking about something which forced me to name this video like I named it. Many people experienced this event in their childhood when they found out about the Vikings for the first time, or like pirates, the Roman centurions, samurais, medieval knights. There's many cool candidates throughout our history. I was kinda a weird kid in this. I always imagined myself as being one of the British political elites in the 20th century, being all like, yes, let us redraw the map of Africa. Indeed. And then you would go through these stages in life where you would change your mind and swap your fascination with something else and forget some entirely. Well, for me, it was never the medieval times. Until I was forced to write quintillion essays on the medieval times, and then I would have no other choice than to be fascinated. It's just such a different time. It was almost alien. People looked different, they used different expressions, the politics were completely different, all of their thoughts seemed alien to me. Until a little slow realization came to me after just enough research on their lives. Yes, very different moral structures and traditions, but they were people. They did have their goals, ambitions, and also struggles. We could not have evolved cognitively in the Darwinistic sense from them on an evolutionary timeline. Medieval times probably didn't even happen a second ago. No, those people there, they are us. You are the medieval person. They also battled with having to find time to tend to their sick family members, having to pay just to be allowed to live, having to battle the injustices of life and society, same as us. I dare say worse though, those guys really didn't even have antibiotics, I mean come on. Yes, they did have more severe problems than us, like disease and slavery and worse health, but we do not have less problems than them. Ours are just less severe. We are not immune to disease, malnutrition or loneliness, or even injustice. We just have better tools to battle those now. Let's talk about how we feel like we're missing out on life because we're overworked, how we miss the joys of life, maybe even our true meanings because we're stuck behind the long hours of our jobs. Those guys had the same dreams, same struggles, maybe a bit more of those. Let's not differentiate ourselves from them just because of our work ethics. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Maybe tell me about what people in history you want to swap places with anyway. I don't know, could be fun. Join us on our Discord. Would love to talk about that with you. Link in the description. Now, video's over, you want to see me elaborate on the estimates of the working hours. Nearly every article that seems to look into this meme has linked this as a source. This paper, post, I don't know, from 1991 by Juliet Schuller, an economist, not a historian, which does not forbid her from giving her thoughts on this, it just, I don't know. The third word used already is capitalism. I'm really trying not to poison the well, but like, come on. Theoretically, you can talk with Marxist vocabulary like means of production in the medieval times. It's just not going to go the way that you think it is. I am not an economist, but like, why immediately antagonize the majority of the entire population that lives under this economic system in the first sentence? Long working hours and, as she's putting forth, the failing to reduce human toil could be a problem with basically any economic system. Anyway, the estimates themselves come from single sources. We even have the names of these people. Estimates. They looked at the peasants, probably noted something down, and yep, that's that. Now, let's play a game. Look at these two numbers of hours worked annually. Mind you, that's around 900 hours difference. Now tell me, what technological development has occurred between the 13th and the 14th century? No, nothing. Nope. You could have stood your pretty head in one place for 100 years, and after the time was up, no technological change. The kings maybe have different colors of robes, or instead of cows being on that hill, there's sheep. Why is there such a time difference? Why is it a different estimate? Why? This is entirely and utterly unreliable. Hello, an economist, for crying out loud. Damn! Like and subscribe, Discord link in the description. Bye.